Hi, everyone. So good to see you here tonight or this afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to another intentional hiking event. Today, I'm really pleased to have a friend and fellow thru hiker, Sirena Rana, here to talk about designing and building trails. When I met her, Sirena was helping to build and promote the Arizona National Scenic Trail and was in the middle of developing their pretty successful Gateway Community Program. So this program connects trail users and to the services and businesses in a lot of the communities along the trail. So tonight we're going to hear about how she has turned her through hiking background into a career designing trails, and she'll give us a glimpse into what it takes to design and build trail systems. So I'm your host, Renee Schieber-Patrick, and I'm an addicted long-distance backpacker, having hiked for over 22 years now, with my first through hike started on the Appalachian Trail, where I really found I loved the immersive deep time that I was spending outside in nature and marveling at the fact that I could walk across a continent one step after another. So I created this event series to help myself and others in the hiking community like you develop a culture of thoughtfulness and intention about the time we spend outside on trails. So thank you for being here. So a couple notes, please use the chat throughout the event. Please, comment, react, share anything you like in the chat. And you can keep your video on or plan to turn your video on during the conversation portion of tonight. So I think this series is as much about building community as it is learning more about the specific topic. And I want to thank Kelsey, who's our event support tonight. So thank you for being here, Kelsey. And you can give a little wave if you're on screen. So now I'm going to start with tonight's event flow. So first, I'll give an introduction about what we're here to talk about in Sirena. Then we will hear from Sirena. She'll be giving a short presentation. Then we'll have time for some Q&A. Then we have Sawyer Products, who is our gear sponsor today. So we have some giveaways, some water filters and treatments for your clothing and for insects. And then we'll get into the conversation portion of the event for about 15 minutes. And then we'll come together for a wrap up. So when all said and done, it'll be an hour to an hour and a half. Now, for those of you joining for the first time, each intentional hiking event is focused on one of the following themes: learn, do, create, be, or a regional focus. So tonight, this is a learn event focused on learning how trails are designed and built. So, and I'm bringing you all together through these events because I believe that together we are a powerful force for change. Beyond developing an informed and thoughtful intentional hiking practice in our own personal trail experiences, I think the impacts and effects of our actions can help influence the world around us. So now I want to see a raise of hands. You can either use your real hand or emoji hand. How many of you here have worked to help build trail before, like from scratch, helped build trail? How about, okay, I see hand. Anyone, a designer, anyone experience with laying out and designing trails? And now I think hopefully some of you fall into this. How about trail maintenance? How many of you have gotten out there and done stewardship, trail work, help maintain our trails? Okay, great. Just good to get an idea of who's here. So I can tell you from my experience that I had no idea what went into building trails until I trained to become a trail crew leader. This was with Southwest Conservation Corps out of Durango back in 2007. I was blown away by the tools, strategies, and skills that some projects took. And after one particular hitch where we spent 6 weeks building 2 retaining walls for a section of trail that was getting eroded by a creek, I had a completely different relationship to the trails that I hiked. For one, every time I'm hiking and I see a trail crew, I thank them profusely for their work. And 2, I marvel at the design and forethought when I see something particularly impressive. especially that view. And I'm sure Serena will share like the views and finding the cool, interesting things so that we as trail users can interact and see those things is an important part of the whole system, of the whole process. So building trails is one thing, but like I was saying, designing is another. And so I don't have that experience designing trails. So I'm excited to hear from Serena what she looks for when laying out a trail, really thinking about the best experience for the trail user. So I had a chance to hike some of Serena's recent trail project at Texas Canyon Nature Preserve when I was in the area a few weeks ago for the Continental Divide Trail kickoff event last month. I loved exploring the unique terrain that she'll share. I know she has lots of photos filled with stone pillars and balancing rocks. It's a really fascinating landscape. So with that, Serena, welcome. I will turn the presentation over to you.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate you inviting me here, and thanks to everybody who has joined us this evening. My name is Sirena Rana. I'm the owner of Trails Inspire LLC, and I'll be telling you about my process and how I got here. It all started with the Arizona Trail, and I will start the presentation. So this presentation is called Where Do Trails Come From? And focusing in on the Texas Canyon Nature Preserve, but also talking about how trails in general are developed. And the Texas Canyon Nature Preserve is located at the Ameren Museum. It's a archaeological research institution, art gallery, and gathering place for Indigenous people and artists. And it's on the ancestral lands of the Chiricahua Apache, the Tohono O'odham, the Hiyaki, and the Hopi. We are supporting the Grand Canyon Trust today. They support and protect the Grand Canyon and do a lot of great work in the region. So thanks again for coming to my talk. So my background, I did not go to school for trails. I have a very eclectic work background, and it has nothing to do with trails. And so the way that I got into doing trail design actually starts out with wanting to hike the Arizona Trail. In 2007, I learned about the Arizona Trail. I was on a hike near the town of Oracle, and I saw this big sign, and the sign said, that you could hike from Mexico to Utah, and it had a map, and it sounded also very interesting. Obviously, this is before the trail was actually completed, so it was more of an idea at the time that was being threaded together. So this was 2007. The trail actually wasn't completed until 2011, and so when I was became interested in the Arizona Trail, I wanted to learn more about, the thing that actually got me interested was, how does anybody hike this trail? Where do they get the water? And so that research led me to learning just in general about long distance hiking and how people do long distance trails, because I had no background in that. I actually didn't grow up hiking at all. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. My parents are immigrants. We didn't really have that kind of thing. Growing up, we didn't do, we went to national parks, but did kind of touring kind of the things, never really put on a backpack and went hiking. And so it wasn't until I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and I went to the University of Arizona for college, and that's where I learned about hiking and got into it. And so I was hiking on the Arizona Trail, and decided that I was going to maybe do a piece of it, but then I learned about long distance hiking, and I was like, I want to try and do the entire thing. So in 2008, I was going to through hike the trail. But then in 2008, if some of you remember, we had a horrible economic downturn, and that was not an option. So I ended up section hiking the trail in 2008, 2009. But when I was doing my research, I got the idea in like May of 2007. When I was doing my research, I kept talking to my then husband, Brian, about, just all about the trail, and I wouldn't stop talking about it. And he was like, there's probably some people that do this kind of thing. for you could probably find other people that are into the Arizona Trail. And so it was summer, so I found a group that was doing trail trail maintenance, and they were called the Summer Crazies because it was in southern Arizona and it was very, very hot. And so you'd have to be a little, you know, off your rocker to be out there in the summer. But I joined them and I had no experience in trail design, maintenance, anything. And I was kind of adopted by this group. I was the only person in their 30s. It was mostly 65 and over retirees. And they took me under their wing and taught me all they knew about trail maintenance. And that began something that it was just so interesting because I had never considered what went into making a trail or maintaining a trail or anything like that. So that was in the summer. And then in the fall, we started building a new piece of connecting trail from Oak Tree Canyon, north of Sonoyta, south of Tucson. And so that was my first trail building experience. And it was just fascinating. And I got to tell you, one of the best things about building trails is walking out on the trail that you just built and going back through that area and being like, yeah, this is the part that I worked on. It's super gratifying. And so I went from, volunteering to help to do maintenance to helping to do the construction, and I eventually led trail crews. I ended up section hiking the Arizona Trail in 2008, 2009, and that's when I met Renee. And then I through hiked it in 2014. So this all came from the Arizona Trail Association, their project. I was part of the crew that built the very last connecting piece in 2011 above the Gila River, one of my favorite memories ever. And I ended up enjoying my Arizona Trail experience so much that I did presentations about it, would, you know, talk to different communities, things like that. And they offered me a job in 2011 to be the Gateway Community Liaison and build a Gateway Community program. And so for uh, 5 years, I traveled the state, and you know, back then, hardly anybody knew about the trail. And I would go into these communities, tell them that the dirty people with backpacks that were showing up in their town, those were hikers looking to spend money in their communities. And so when you look at it that way, you get a lot different reception. And I'm proud to say that the Arizona Trail Gateway Community Program gets talked about a lot as far as just really friendly communities and people willing to help. So very gratifying to know that that was my legacy. In 2017, I started Trails Inspire, and I promote the outdoors through writing and photography, public speaking, and trail design. I got a job with the town of Tucson, which is the gateway community to the Grand Canyon. And these were contacts that I got through the building the Gateway Community Program. So I designed the Tucson Community Trail System in 2017, and we were going through almost ready to do the NEPA, and that project fell through. So then in 2017, 2018, I helped design a new trail system in Superior, Arizona with Southwest Trail Solutions. We got through the NEPA on that one, and then the project fell through. So this is the first project where I have had not only the design, but actually the construction all the way to the opening. And what a project. So I'll talk about how that came to be. But first, we'll take a little tour so I can show you where I'm talking about. So the Texas Canyon Nature Preserve is not in Texas. It's actually in southeastern Arizona. It's in about an hour east of Tucson on I-10. And you can see that on the map on your left, the interstate is visible in the northwest corner of the map. So it's a stacked loop trail system. And I love stacked loops because it gives you a lot of options for different lengths and difficulties, and you can make decisions on the fly. You get to an intersection. Do I want to do another piece? Do I want to, add another loop? or am I done for the day and want to go back? It also gives a lot of options for bailout points, for hikers that, get into trouble. It's very hot out there sometimes. Uh, Also, you have people coming in that might not be super experienced since the setting is so accessible off of the interstate. So the stacked loop trail system, all of the trails in red except for the bird pond that goes out to the southeast. That's all new, brand new trail. So it's a stacked loop trail system except for the bird pond, which is an existing trail, and then the Whale Rock Trail is an out and back. So this is one of my favorite views from the high saddle on the Sky Trail, and where the trail crosses bedrock, it is signed with these blue dots that you see in the lower right corner. And I painted every single one of those dots myself with uh, exterior house paint. And they're holding up really well, and it helps people to be able to find their way across the slick rock and the boulders. This is the Beargrass Trail. We've got this fantastic little rock hallway that we found. Um, that's my mentor, Mark, who taught me all I know about trail design, going through uh, that little rock hallway. There's also a pond. It's very, very good birding location. And it's called the Beargrass Trail. You can see there's one of our trail signs, and the trails are signed. The top one is Tahana Adam. The middle one is obviously English. This bottom one is Spanish. And then right now they are going to be adding a Apache translation. And so the Beargrass Trail is the one that's closest to the picnic area, the main picnic area where the main trailhead is. And one of the ways that it was routed was to facilitate material gathering for Tana Adam basket weavers. And so it's really great for me to be able to weave use, um, those kinds of usage into my trail system. It makes it that much more meaningful. And when the first time I came down the hill and saw a whole family there gathering grasses and, just being able to access these materials, it really made a huge impact on me. This is the Oak Trail. They surprised me at the grand opening by naming one of the trails after me, and it's called the Rana Trail. And this is what we call Tafoni Rock. It's a wind and weathering pattern on these incredible, it's monzonite, which is a similar to granite. This is the Coatimundi Trail. Coatimundi is a raccoon-like animal that lives in the Sonoran, or this is a Chihuahuan desert. And this is the North Loops area. We've got our whale, and this unmistakably whale rock. So this is the out and back trail that goes to this whale. And another reason the whale is special is because it was featured on postcards in the mid 1900s, and so it's an icon of the Amarin Foundation. So the Amarin Foundation runs the Amarin Museum, and it's a privately funded institution. The way that I was contacted about this, so first of all, if you can see that it's very close to I-10, and so there's a rest area nearby, and you can actually see this wonderland of rocks from this rest area. And anybody who's ever driven by has stopped at the rest area and gone, gosh, I wonder what it would be like to hike back there. But it never was possible because it's private land, and the only available access to the Amarin Museum was the gallery, the museum, and then a small picnic area. And so nobody had been on this land. No, not, the public had not been able to be on this land prior to the trails being constructed there. So in 2019, I got an email, December 2019, I got an email, and it was a cold email. I'd never heard from Eric before. Eric Caldwell is the CEO of the Ameren Foundation, and I got an email that said, "Hello, my name is Eric Caldell. I'm from the Ameren Museum," and he went on to explain where he was, and we're located in Texas Canyon. And I knew exactly where it was. And I wrote him back and I said, "I know exactly who you are. I know exactly where you're located. When can I come visit?" They had been thinking about doing a trail system for a while, but they had no idea where to start. And I had done a presentation on the benefits of trails for communities at the Arizona Governor's Conference on Tourism. And someone in the neighboring community, Benson, had seen my presentation. And so Eric was asking around. He found my name and my company, and he contacted me in December. So in January 2020, I did an initial site visit, which consisted of a tour. So when I do anything with trails, the number one thing is to ask the people who already know the land, because I'm generally not coming in as the most knowledgeable person for that plot of land. There are people, for example, Ron, the groundskeeper, had worked there for over 20 years. And so when Eric and Ron took me out on my site visit, I said, "Okay, let's go see like the good stuff, but also point out to me what you want to avoid." Since it's an archaeological research institution, they had already done a really thorough archaeological survey, and then there had been some botanical studies as well. So I was given a map with all of those as far as where not to be, um, not to put trails through, obviously, like archaeological sites and things like that. So I was taken on a tour, and there was a couple of different main areas so that needed to be connected. But other than that, and keeping away from those areas that I was told not to go near, Eric basically gave me the opportunity to design what I wanted and to how to best use this plot of land. And the whole property is 1,900 acres. Some of that is located across the highway. And so I had a pretty decent size plot of land to explore. So one of the things that we wanted to do was connect the main picnic area to a water tower. The water tower hill is the view that I showed you from the Sky Trail. And so the water tower to the north trailhead to a pond that's in the north, and then a smaller picnic area to Whale Rock. So we did this site visit in January 2020. It was extremely successful. We were all excited, ready to get going. And then 2020 happened. So things were put on hold for a while. And so we didn't get to do the trail layout until December of 2021. Mark Flint, my mentor, who taught me everything I know about trails, he has both a scientific and a aesthetic and almost a spiritual aspect to his trail design. He always says that the land will tell you where to go a lot of times if you listen to it. And so keeping in mind all of the technical things that you have to keep in mind, but a lot of times if you're having a question about where to put a trail, the best thing to do is just kind of sit for a minute and look around, see what the land is saying. One of the fun things that we found was the anniversary rock, which looks like two people kissing on his anniversary. The trail layout took about a week, and we laid out approximately 5.2 miles of new trail. And since it's loops, you can use those loops. It's 5.2 miles, but you can use the loops to make a much longer experience. So we did the layout in 2021, and January 4th of last year, we broke ground with Flagline Trails. They're out of Flagstaff, Arizona. They do amazing work. I am so impressed with the job that they've done out there. We've had some pretty major rain events, some storms, weather, things like that to test the system. And it's really impressive, the job that they did. So this with them, the very first day, they had two different machines, this smaller trail building machine And then also had a larger Trailmaster Sutter 300. So a lot of this is the Chihuahuan Desert, and so it's mostly grasslands, and a lot of the trail construction was how to deal with all of this grass. But I want to back up a little bit and talk about, because this is where I don't know if I specifically named them. So the things that you want to see when you're designing a trail are called positive control points. So that's a view or a really cool rock formation or a pond, those kinds of things. That's a positive control point. A negative control point is things that you don't want. So slopes that are too steep, or a big giant cliff, or an area of archaeological sensitivity. So you use these positive control points and negative control points to do your design. And the most important thing, and even in the desert where you'd think that we don't get a lot of water, so it's not that important, but the most important thing when designing a trail is the grade and how the trail is going to drain. The drainage is everything, because we've all been on those trails that are like a rut, that goes up to your ankle, and it's just like a little divot in the ground, and that's not what you want. You want tread that sheds water properly, that has drainage features, and that goes across slopes, and at a good grade. And you can see that's that water tower hill that I was talking about earlier. And this is the Sutter 300, and it even says on the machine that it is the ultimate trail machine. And one of the neat things about specifically trail machines versus just construction equipment is that you can you want an outslope so that the water sheets off of the trail. And so the blade tilts like this so that you can blade at an angle, so that because you never want a flat trail. Flat trails are basically a great opportunity for erosion, for pooling of water. So you always want to have that sheeting action when water is going off of your trail, not down it. So these were all very experienced trail construction folks, and they did a great job. The thing is that we designed and built the trail. So we started building the trail in January. We were going to be done in March, except that April is one of the highest fire seasons in Arizona, especially in this area where so much grass. You can see it's just a tinderbox full of grasses. And so we weren't going to be able to open the trails until October, until after the summer had passed and after the fire season, and then our summer monsoon and our heat had passed. And so what that actually that created one problem, because if you don't compact the trails after you build them, you've basically just seeded the whole area and aerated the ground. And so that would have given an opportunity just for our trails to just completely get overgrown by grasses again. So one of the things that we came up with was to do compaction hikes. And so this was an opportunity for people to come preview the trail system and mash it down for us. And it's really interesting because you can actually tell where more of the hikes were done, which areas got the most compaction, because later when we went to go open the trails, those areas were not as overgrown. So trail completion, March 2023, we ended up with 5.7 miles of new construction. So the way that happened is because we had done the original design in 2021, and then you go through, so that had been flagged with flagging tape and pin flags. And what we did right before the construction would go through an area, Mark and I would go through and tight flag. And so what tight flagging is giving the trail builders a very specific route on exactly where the center line of the trail should go. And so that they don't have to make decisions about where the trail's going. They can just go ahead and use our line and build from there. This was very unusual though, because it's private land. So a little bit about the difference between public and private land. If it was public land, there would have had to have been an environmental assessment of some sort. It's called a NEPA. Would have been a lot more steps in the process, and then we would have gotten approved for a small corridor that was cleared that we were allowed to build on. So since this is private land, we didn't have a designated corridor. Basically, Eric said, if you find something better, go for it. You know, as long as you're keeping off of those places that we don't want you to go to, the archaeological sites and things like that. He basically gave me carte blanche to make decisions on the fly. And so it wasn't just me that was making these decisions. I gave my trail building crew the opportunity to make last minute decisions just as long as they ran it by me. And we ended up with a lot of really cool little spots that we hadn't seen on the first or second run through. And so I think it's really important for it to be a collaborative effort and for there to not be like egos where like, oh, it's my design and this is the way it has to be, where I just wanted it to be the absolute best it could have been. And so that meant taking collaboration and ideas and routing suggestions from the crew as well. And so that's how we ended up with almost a half mile more trail than original. So that's where all the good stuff is, in the squiggles. So right after the Texas Canyon Nature Preserve was completed, I mentioned that it was fire season in April. 2 weeks after completion, uh, it lit on fire. There was an accident on the interstate, and one of the cars rolled off and lit the land on fire. I was absolutely devastated. I couldn't even believe it. 2 weeks after my trails were completed. But I was pleasantly surprised to find when I went back to survey the damage that the trails actually acted as a fire break. So you can see the fire came from the direction of the interstate to the left, reached the trail, and then stopped. And so that's really, it's, a definite, I told Eric, you buy a trail system and you get a fire break for free. So really fortuitous that it had been done, because also that saved the firefighters a lot of work in cutting fire line. It's actually come back really well. It's grasslands, and so it's kind of used to fire, and so you can hardly tell that there was a fire there at all. So I mentioned that it's the trail system sat unused, except for me on occasion during the summer, and so in September we started getting ready for the pre-opening maintenance, and you can see there was quite a bit of growth in certain areas. That's sacred datura. In some areas, it looked like we were running a sacred datura farm, and these things had to be taken care of. Because we had done the compaction hikes, you can still see that there is tread there. And so it made it a lot easier than if we hadn't done those compaction hikes. This is the grand opening celebration on October 7th, 2023. It was a wonderful day. We had 200 people for the event, the grand opening event, and then a lot more hikers all the way throughout the day. They gave me the big scissors to cut the big red ribbon, and it was so incredibly wonderful to see these people on the trail, to look out on these trails that had been just, me, Mark, and the trail crew, and to see people actually enjoying them. And I even overheard some people talking about how much they enjoyed it and how excited they were to come back. And, it's just so absolutely gratifying to finally get one of these trail systems to completion. And it's been very successful. They just closed for fire season um, on Earth Day in April, and so they'll be closed until the first monsoon rains, probably around July 5th, and then they'll reopen. And so it was great to see, you know, see people posting about it online. And we even got last month was huge for us because we were featured in Arizona Highways magazine, and then total surprise, Outside magazine included us in it was a article called 23 places to visit in 2024, and Tucson was one of them, and they mentioned the Texas Canyon Nature Preserve. So just couldn't be happier, and it's just going to grow from here. And I'm ready for it because I've already been scouting for expansion of the trail system, and I've been able to double the amount of mileage already. And so I'm all ready to go when we want to do another round. The way that this was funded actually was through the community of Dragoon, which is the closest community there, and then the folks that were associated with the Amarin Museum members and foundation. And so it was really a community effort that came together to create this trail system that everybody's enjoying now. One of the things that's unusual too is that the tread is so nice that you don't even have to watch your feet so much, which is pretty unusual in very rocky Arizona. And so it's a really special experience, and I hope you guys get to go out there at some point. Like I said, it's about an hour outside of Tucson, Arizona, to the east. So that's my presentation. I'll take your questions. I just wanted to mention a couple things quick. I do have a book called Best Day Hikes on the Arizona National Scenic Trail. I am available for trail design projects anywhere in the country, or for that matter in the world. I live on the road, so would love nothing more than to talk to your community or your group about trails. I am very interested in developing more private trail systems. Whether, what that looks like, I'm not quite sure, but I'm open to suggestions and collaborations. I also do writing, photography, and presentations like this one. And my next book, Urban Trails Tucson by Mountaineers Books, will be coming out in February 2025.
Thank you so
I'd
much,
be happy.
Serena. There's a lot there to just celebrate, and especially that you're gonna double the mileage, and who knows
Yeah.
what this could look like in a few years. I see there was a question in the comments. Who is the property owner of this
The
trail system?
Amarin Foundation. So it's the Amarin Museum that is run by the Amarin Foundation.
So I have a question. How is there anything specifically about your experience as a hiker that now helps you in designing trails?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that. Thanks for reminding me. And not only does that help designing trails, but I think that one of the things that when I started doing trail maintenance, it really helped me to find trail. When I was, when I hiked the Arizona Trail, it wasn't complete. Remember what it was like. And, it was, if you know how trails are built, then you know what to look for if you're, in an area that's overgrown, maybe looking for some rock work or cut branches, things like that. As far as, my hiking, uh, how it affects my design, I think that, I just want to make it as exciting and, enjoyable as possible. And, it gets me excited to know that I've put something together that is bringing people joy. And so if I get to overlook and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, obviously I want to put that into the trail system and figure out a way to make that work. Um, Same thing with like, uh, just routing things in a fun way. Because you can do a bunch of, especially with this grasslands, it was pretty open. And so we had a lot of options, but just finding that like combination, like when we found the rock hallways, there's a couple of different little rock hallways that you go through and things like that. And that's just so fun. And it's so neat to be able to add things like that, features like that and then like when I took you on my trails, just to see you guys so excited about walking through the little hallway and taking pictures, and that just means everything to me.
Great. We have a question about how did you know where the sensitive archaeological sites were?
I was given a map.
Okay,
And then
because it was a research center, they had, yeah.
yeah, and if it was public land, then that's where the NEPA would come in, where they would do like a survey with an archaeologist on the line that you were proposing to build a trail. But with this, it was already done. And like I said, there had been some botanical studies done as well, because that's another thing that you look at is sensitive plants, and to avoid those. And for the most part, a lot of the archaeological sites weren't in the boulders and in the area that I was looking at. They were more in the flats, and so it was pretty easy to avoid.
And so what about keeping track of users? How do they track who's using the trail?
So this trail system is actually you have to pay because it's private land, and and you also have to sign a waiver, because if you have to pay for trails, you are not protected under the Arizona recreational use statute. If you don't have to pay for access, then you're protected under, you know, the recreational use statute that says you can't get, injure yourself and sue the person that's whose public land it is that you used for free. So, but with the addition of a fee, then they have a waiver system, and they also keep very close track of who's on the trails because they lock the gates at 5 o'clock. People are supposed to be off the trails by 3:30. They also have one nice thing is that there is access on dirt roads to different parts of the trail system. And I think eventually they're going to have docents wandering the trails to help manage people. I think that right now it's not such an issue because it's new, but I think that as more people find out about it, it's going to become really, really popular. And so uh, keeping track of who's out there, and making sure that everybody gets back and safely and things like that is really important.
And when I was out there with you last month, I went and visited the museum, and it's a really fantastic museum of a lot of different cultural artifacts and a lot of history. Are there plans to sort of develop something so trail users can learn about the rock formations or the geology, or some sort of interpretive guide to what we're experiencing out there?
Yeah, Eric's got all of that written out, and I think he's just waiting maybe until the fall to put up because that's one of the next phases. We basically wanted to get the trail system open with the regular signage, and then the next step is to put all of the interpretive signage. The Beargrass Trail, the one that's the closest to the picnic area, that's going to be the main interpretive trail because it's the easiest. And then and there's also 46 benches that are on the property as well, which make it really nice for people that just want a nice stroll, maybe learn something about the location and get a nice walk in.
Nice. We have a couple more questions that have come in. What does trail maintenance on this system look like?
So it's actually mostly after monsoon season. So the monsoon in Arizona generally happens around beginning of July until through middle of September. And so that's when they're going to get all of their growth. I was really surprised that, this winter we had quite a bit of rain, and they even get snow out there. It's at 4,800 feet. And so it really didn't grow very much. There was hardly any overgrowth at all to take care of, while the trail system was open. Now that the trail system is closed for the fire season, there won't be any growth during fire season because it's generally dry. But then once the monsoon rains start, then we'll get the grasses, and it's mainly it's grasses and then cutting back of branches. Like we have mesquite, a lot of mesquite trees and oak trees, things like that that need branches cut back. But it's mostly a lot of it is grass management.
Got it. And are wheels, bicycles, wheelchairs, are those type of things allowed on the trails?
So in the second phase, we are going to we were going to make part of the interpretive trail wheelchair accessible. No bikes, it's specifically a hiking trail. And then there's also no dogs allowed because it's a very environmentally sensitive area. There's tons of wildlife out there. And so they wanted to make sure that the wildlife stayed happy and safe.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think we're going to move on to make sure we get all the great things in tonight's event that we want to. Thank you so much, Sirena, for sharing this project and how you go about designing and building trails. Yeah, appreciate it.
Great questions, everybody. Thanks so much.
So I do what Sirena already mentioned, but she identified the Grand Canyon Trust as a nonprofit partner that you all had the opportunity to donate to during registration. So the Grand Canyon Trust safeguards the Grand Canyon and the Colorado Plateau and also supports the rights of Native peoples. So through donations, we are going to be donating $50 to the Grand Canyon Trust through the generosity of all of you. And thanks to Sirena. So I know who has a long and wonderful relationship with the Grand Canyon too. So we're going to move on to our gear giveaways. So tonight is sponsored by Sawyer products. So I've been using Sawyer's water filters and insect repellent treatment for years. Since 1984, Sawyer has offered the best, most technologically advanced solutions for protection against sun, bugs, water, and injuries. So they have everything from first aid kits to topical insect repellents that use time-release technology. So, but more than making a good product, I'm blown away by their commitment to providing clean water to developing countries around the world. So they have a Clean Water for All initiative where they donate 90% of their profits, 90% to help provide clean water to communities in developing countries. So for over 10 years, Sawyer has worked with more than 140 charities in 80 countries to get people clean access to clean water. So I think that's really amazing. So tonight we have 3 giveaways, and each giveaway will include a Sawyer squeeze water filter, some, I'm going to mispronounce this word, picaridin, whatever that word is, insect repellent, and some permethrin clothing and gear treatment. So this is going to be the trivia question. So get ready with your chat. The first person who enters the right answer in the chat will win. So first question, one of the most popular water filters that thru hikers use is the Sawyer Squeeze, and it can remove some nasty stuff from the water source you want to drink from. So please name 2 of the 7 things these filters can remove from the water. So again, put into the chat, the first person to include 2 correct answers from the list of 7 will win one of each of these products that you see on the screen. So I'm watching the chat, so get your answers in. What, and think of those water sources you've had to drink from. So I see Giardia, sediment, Giardia bacteria. I mean, sediment's an obvious one, but unfortunately it's not on their list of 7, Jeff, but great guess. And yes, Mary, you're right, Giardia and bacteria. So the full list was bacteria, protozoa, E. coli, Giardia, Vibrio cholerae, salmonella, and microplastics. So you hear like we're consuming a crazy amount of microplastics, but not if we filter through Sawyer. So congrats, Mary. So next we're going to talk about insect repellent. So one of their picadurin topical spray is effective for up to 12 hours against mosquitoes and ticks. So I want to talk about ticks and Lyme disease. Say you're bitten by a tick and contract Lyme disease. What are two possible early symptoms that you could experience in the first 3 to 30 days after your bite? So again, put the answer in the chat. If you can get two of the early signs of Lyme disease correct, you'll win a set of these products. So how do you know? How do you know it's Lyme and not just through hiking? That's tricky. Fatigue and a ring-shaped welt. Yes, Jeff, good, you got it this time. Congrats. Bullseye rash, fever, yes, that's right as well. So the full list is a rash, a bullseye rash. Although you don't necessarily need that bullseye rash to know that you have Lyme. A fever, a headache, extreme tiredness, joint stiffness, muscle aches and pains, and swollen lymph nodes. So I know my hiking partner in the AT in 2002 got Lyme disease, and she knew because mostly the joint stiffness. She did not have a ring, muscle aches and pains, and the joint stiffness. But these can often be masked when we're hiking because obviously we're tired, obviously we're sore, and we have muscle aches. But yeah, oh Jeff, or that could be a Monday. Very true. It could. So last giveaway. So now we're going to talk about the permethrin fabric treatment. So the permethrin fabric treatment can be used to treat things like clothing, gear, and tents. A successful application of this insect repellent treatment is effective against mosquitoes and ticks for 6 weeks or 6 washes. So through hikers, you're lucky if you get 1 wash a week. So that's about accurate. So I'm going to ask you a percentage, and the right person to type it in to the chat wins. A University of Rhode Island study found that people wearing permethrin treated shoes and socks were how many times less likely to have a tick bite than those wearing untreated footwear? So the answer is a percentage. Is it 20% less likely, 50, 100%? What do you think? How much more effective is your clothing if you treat it with permethrin? Patty says 80, and this will be closest answer wins. So get all your answers in. I need to see a few answers before awarding the winner. So other guesses out there? 90. And I'll give you another minute. Some pretty optimistic guesses. 50%, 95, 40. Well, it looks like Patty is gonna win with her answer was 80. The answer is 73.6. So you are that much more likely to not get a tick bite. That's a compelling reason that I think so. So I do like to treat myself with permethrin now. Again, because I've seen friends get Lyme disease, and it is not something you want to tackle. So big thanks to Sawyer Products for our giveaways today. And if you're ever interested in sponsoring a giveaway or know someone who would, please email me for more information.